Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Moran. The next item is the approval of the agenda, and would entertain a motion, or actually we can do by acclamation, approval of the agenda. Seeing no objections, the agenda is approved. All right, the minutes have been distributed, and has everyone had an opportunity to review those? Are there any changes or alterations that need to be made? Sherry, anything? All right, seeing none, any objections to approving the minutes by acclamation? All right, seeing none, the minutes are approved. We'll now go to citizen comments. Do we have any citizens wishing to address the commission on any items not on the agenda? Seeing none. We have no old business. We do have one item of new business, but before, if I could take a point of personal privilege, as some folks know, we have had a member of the commission who's had a death in the family recently. And I was hoping we could just take a minute for a moment of silence for John Nurnberger's son. And so if we could do that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Again, moving on to our new business, we do have, this is 22007. This is rezoning the property at 200 Hanley Industrial Court from the PD Plan Development Overlay District to the UD Urban Development District, as well as site development plan and conditional use permit for a new 273,000 square foot elevator apartment facility and a 26,000 Planet Fitness facility. The commission may remember, we did have this put in front of us earlier. There was or at least the rough concept, the possibility of doing a text amendment that went to the Board of Aldermen, and as folks may have seen from staff report, they're sent back to us for a potential zoning or rezoning. So that is why it may look familiar for those who were here last time. So, is the petitioner with us this evening?
Yes, Chair.
All right, if you could please state your name again and just a brief update on where we stand with this, and then we will go to staff report and public comment.
Be happy to do so. I'd like to share the screen now, please. Work?
Not quite yet. Looks like it's coming up. So there we go.
Have it. Thank you, Chair Nelson, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Mike Doster. I'm the land use attorney on the development team for the petitioner. We have three presenters tonight. I am first, and second will be Josh Barkus from Stock and Associates. He's the civil engineer on the project. And third will be Jeff McGee, who is the architect on the project. And I appreciate your comments initially, Chair Nelson. We were before you before, and that was for the purpose of obtaining your recommendation of approval of a text amendment, which we needed if we were going to proceed to do the project under the existing zoning. We presented in front of the Board of Aldermen, and we received their comments. I think there were some concerns about making a global change by way of the text amendment, and there was also an indication from at least a couple of the members of the board that they thought rezoning to the district that we're seeking to rezone to tonight was more appropriate. So that's why we're back in front of you. And as you'll see in this next slide, that's really the chronology of the process so far. And I have copies of this presentation if all of you would like to have those copies. So we have filed a petition to rezone to Urban Development District. We're also requesting a conditional use permit, and there are two requests with respect to the conditional use permit. One is for the height. Our height will be 6 stories or 75 feet, and so we need a conditional use permit for that. We're also asking for a conditional use to be approved, which is the health club gymnasium use, which would accommodate, obviously, the Planet Fitness part of the development. We're also asking for a site plan approval. We're processing that in parallel. And in connection with that, we're also asking for a parking reduction. Just a brief overview of the proposed project. The other presenters will cover this in a little more detail. But this is a mixed-use development proposal at 200 Hanley Industrial Court. The size of the property is 3.62 acres. Property is currently vacant. The Planet Fitness portion of the structure would occupy, I say approximately, but here it's a figure of 26,604. The apartments would occupy approximately 277,025 square feet, comprising 256 units. And again, the building height would be 6 stories and 75 feet. The factors that we think support the parking reduction are as follows. The applicant's parking study shows that we really only need 1.47 spaces per unit to meet peak demand. We're actually providing 455 residential spaces and a total of 588 total spaces, including the residential spaces. So we are actually providing more than what the parking study would indicate that we need, but we think it's important to provide what we're providing given our knowledge of the market, and it obviously is less than what the city code requires, so that's why we're seeking a reduction. We believe that the city's traffic consultant has indicated that the project has sufficient parking as proposed. We obviously have to provide some outstanding site planning features. You may hear more about this from our other presenters, but we'll include a heavily landscaped front yard, a sidewalk for public use, a naturally landscaped bioretention basin, and natural grasses to preserve the rear of the site. Factors to be considered with respect to the conditional use permit. We have a couple of pages of those that I just want to go over briefly. According to the city's traffic consultant, there's no anticipated increase of traffic hazards or congestion. Now, I believe that's what's indicated in the staff report, but I believe that the traffic consultant's actual report is still pending, and obviously the Planning Commission will deal with that when it's received. We've worked with your fire department on a site plan, and we will have a special fire truck access to provide for truck circulation, and I believe the fire department is in agreement with that part of our plan. Another factor to consider is this project will bring over $94 million in investment to the area. It will strengthen the character of the neighborhood and we think impact the general welfare of the community. There is sufficient infrastructure existing or to be built to provide sufficient utility service to the project without overtaxing public utilities. And we intend to comply with all other applicable provisions of the zoning code, and we don't plan on asking for any variances. Additional factors supporting our request for conditional use permit, the redevelopment of the property to an exercise facility and multifamily housing option promotes community welfare and convenience, we believe. The substantial investment in this property will positively impact the neighboring property values and perhaps encourage further redevelopment in the area. The project is compliant with the city's comprehensive plan. A naturally landscaped bioretention basin will be built on site. The development will complement the surrounding area, and therefore we believe it's compatible with adjacent development and may, as I said earlier, even encourage further redevelopment in the area. That's really all I have. In summary, Chair Nelson and members of the Planning Commission, I'm happy to answer any questions, but we do have two other presenters, and I'd like to introduce them and let them do their presentation.
Just a quick question for you, Mr. Doster. I understand no additional variances. Does that include signage as well?
Well, we have not finished developing our sign package, as it were. It's possible that we will ask for sign variance. We need to finish the package first to understand what it is we need and whether or not it meets your code. And if it doesn't, we may be submitting a request for variance on that at a later time.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Just so that you don't have to do up and down, any questions from the commission for Mr. Doster at this point? Oh, sorry, please.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. What's the basis of the $94 million investment number? What's the math behind it?
I would like to let one of the principals who's not scheduled to be a presenter answer that question. That number comes from my client.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Yes. Jeff Mugg, one of the principals, will answer that question.
Hi, I'm Jeff Mugg, one of the principals of the deal. one of the consultants. The 94 million that's just total project cost. That's hard cost and soft cost. So all in number, there's the answer, simple.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Josh Marcus with Stock and Associates, the civil engineer on the project. I'm going to go over the existing site plan that we have here. Currently, it's undeveloped. It had been developed years ago and demolished. There's 3 existing site access points that are stubbed into the site. One on the south side on Hanley Industrial Court, and 2 that are next to each other on the west side on Hanley Industrial Court. There's a drainage boundary break between the north and the south. Generally, 2/3 of the site drains to the north and 1/3 to the south, for which we will continue to adhere to those drainage sheds with the proposed conditions. The Metrolink rail system is to our east. Light industrial properties are to our north and to our west and south, and then South Hanley Road is also to the east on the other side of the Metrolink rail. The proposed site plan will continue to utilize 3 access points. One will be for a surface parking lot off the south side, generally located where the existing entrance is, aligning with the property to the south across the street. We have 10 spaces that come to the front door of the Planet Fitness facility, and then fire emergency access only lanes that come along the east side up along the Metrolink rail. The other 2 access points along the west side of the drive will be for the garage access and for circulation for drop-off deliveries. And the west or northernmost entrance to that site will also bring you to another fire access only lane that will provide access to the north side of the building. The existing utilities around the site will serve water from the west. Storm and sanitary will go to the north, and portion of the storm will go to the south. We've got a staired access point and access to the public sidewalk from the garage access that's in between the 2 driveways that you see there. And then we have our above-ground bioretention basin for water quality and stormwater management on the south side of the project. I'm not sure if there's any questions regarding the site plan.
This is something I just think of my unfamiliarity. I'm not sure I've seen a development that is backed onto Metrolink. Are there any, I know we often engage with MoDOT, any special requirements from Bi-State or from Metro for this, or actually this may be from
We will
staff
be
report as well?
coordinating with them and sending them our drawings throughout the process, but currently we're not showing to do any work across that property line that would adhere or impact any of the existing grading that they have up to the rail system.
Thank you. Mr. Moran?
Hi there. I'm sure you thought about all this and everything, but when I think about the population of Brentwood Industrial or Hanley Industrial on a regular day, there's a few people in a few different structures, right? And now there's going to be 256 units. Is like the water supply in and the sanitation out sized for like that big increase in human activity and showers and everything else, all the things that people are going to be doing? It's a lot different to the current usage of utilities today in that area.
Correct. So we will be coordinating with the utility companies. Currently, there's an 8-inch water main that loops around through Hanley Industrial Court. I don't think that we have the exact flow rates right now, but we have sent our plans to Missouri American Water for review and comment. We've done a conceptual review through the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District to outline what our requirements will be. And as you said, when you add 256 or 66 residential units into a sanitary system that hasn't seen that before, they've outlined the reaches of their system that we have to analyze for the flow. And we've done those calculations, and they will be submitted as part of the review and permit process whenever we go into the construction drawing phase.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Jeff McGee will talk about the architecture now.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening, Jeff McGee, St. Louis Design Alliance Architects. So I want to talk about, just run us through the plans here real quick. So this is the at-grade level, which we already saw a little bit of in the civil engineering plan. Gonna move the mouse here. You can see at the front that Josh had mentioned the 10 spaces when you first come up to the building are going to be primarily for guests to the Planet Fitness. Before anyone's a member, they come up there, visit, go inside. Once they become a member, they'll be directed to go around to the 2 entrances off the Hanley Industrial Court side on the west side of the building to be able to park at the ground level and the level above. Those two levels that'll be at the Planet Fitness level, which Planet Fitness building will be a 2-story volume. They'll be parking in there, and then the residents that are above the podium will be parking on the 2 lower levels. So there'll be 2 levels subgrade of parking, 2 levels above grade. And then at the ground level, we'll also have amenities that will serve the units up above. We will have dog wash station, and we'll have bike storage, bike repair. We have the lobby for the elevator package delivery station as well. Are there any questions with how we've laid out this base level? So the third level of this 6-story building out of grade, this is the first level of residential. When you come up the elevator, you'll have the elevator lobby and be greeted by the clubhouse, which will be a 2-story volume. We'll have operable glass doors that will go out to a pool deck. The highlight of this space is really going to be the amenity deck, but serving the amenities on the inside will be the clubhouse, several multi-purpose areas in here, office space, kitchenette, and then back-of-house services, bathrooms and such, and changing areas to be able to serve the amenity deck, as well as a leasing office and supporting spaces. On the amenity deck, we will have the pool, which will be primarily just a wading pool. Nobody's going to be doing laps in here. It's going to be probably going down to shallow, just be able to get your floating devices out there and be able to hang out in the pool. We'll have a pavilion that'll be adjacent to that, a pavilion deck. And then we'll have our courtyard, which is in the center, which will be our main tables and chairs area. And then we'll have to the right, we'll have the pavilion for grilling, kitchenette, that'll be associated with the sports court and green space out on the amenity deck.
Sorry, for the pedestrian entrance from the ground floor, so if
Yes.
someone was taking Metrolink, for example, I think that's obviously one of the values, very close to Metrolink. That's east-west side, is that correct? Both east and west?
Are you talking about for this level? I'm sorry.
Yes, so if it was a pedestrian entry, they'd be coming, along.
Up through that center. I wish I could move the
Sorry,
mouse.
yeah, the pointer. I can see it. I see the elevator banks there. Okay.
Yeah.
just
So
making sure.
that's the main entrance from the street.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we have 2 elevator banks, one in the front, one in the back.
Okay.
One in the back is just service for parking. And then there'll be a dedicated elevator also just for the Planet Fitness to be able to handle the 2 floors that they will be parking on.
Thank you.
So sprinkled around the building, we'll also have office spaces and sitting areas around the perimeter that we can see on the upper floors, and as well as a potential roof deck area on this. The uppermost level on the southeast corner will have a sky lounge that will overlook Hanley Road. This will be a great area to be able to connect folks with the Hanley corridor. As you know, that's the most busy side. This connects you to what's going on, and that'd be a great hangout area with a fantastic view.
Are those office spaces just administration for the building, or are those commercial office spaces?
That'll be office spaces for the tenants.
Tenants.
So it'll be amenity. So, you know, you want to have a Zoom call with a couple people in the building, you can do it there. So
Understand.
That's become, with COVID, a popular thing that we're looking into. Any other questions with plans?
Thank you.
We'll start getting into some of the elevations. We'll see a couple different materials here, and the board, spin that around for you guys. So we'll have base level of brick, which we have the dark gray color brick that we have shown up here, with the Nichiha, which is a fiber cement material, coming down into that. It's a long linear building, and we'll be able to break that up with vertical elements, as well as the towers on the corners and at the entry of the building. That'll be key to anchoring this building and making it feel substantial, yet, you know, not repetitive all the way down. So we have the height, as was previously mentioned, up to 75 feet at the top is the highest parapet level, but we will have the towers, which will be uninhabitable, but backlit to kind of glow at night, and we'll see that in the rendering. that'll be breaching that 75 feet by 7 feet, but it'll be not inhabitable. We have 2 different colors of brick, 2 different colors of Nichiha, which is the fiber cement, and we will also have the glass and deck systems.
If I'm viewing that correctly, I'm sorry, well, actually, the next rendering was probably the better one, just to see that
That's
sky
good.
view. All right, so those, all right, skylight there, and then, okay, I see it on that
Yeah,
side
so you see these 3 towers along here. That's not habitable space. No one's up there. It's just going to be kind of blank space where we'll backlight things. It'll look great at night. So you kind of see a little bit of that there. So you can see those are
And there's the sky view
features,
deck.
feature elements. So as you can see, we're breaking up the length of this building with a lot of depth, pulling in and out of the building, pushing some of the decks in to create a lot of shadow and interest. The lighter color spaces will be actually a patchwork of Nichiha boards. You can see 3 colors there. So instead of, what we want to stay away from is it looking very flat. So that's why we have the panels, which will have a reveal system built into it, also with some different colors in there to give it some variation and depth with the color. So you get a little bit of color texture. And then we have the brown, which is the wood-looking Nichiha, which will be panels. Again, we'll have reveals in there. But you get the physical texture as well as the visual texture of wood and warmth in that up above the heavier, cooler elements of the brick. And then we have the red brick towers, which accentuate those anchoring points around the building. And you can see off to the side there on the far right, the Sky Lounge, which overlooks Hanley. And then a night view showing our lighting, which will be breaking up and accentuating the different elements of the building so we don't get such a long, plain look. We have the plantings and the lights to help break a lot of that up. Any questions?
Yep, Mr. Moran, please.
What happened to pointy roofs? For hundreds of years, roofs were like this, like for the rain and the snow. If we get like a 2-foot snow, isn't it all going to sit on the top? What are you guys going to do about that?
So that'll be sloped on the backside, and the engineers will account for the snow drift, which that's the collection of that. And we'll also have, there'll be heat from below, which will help melt that. It'll slide off the back and then go onto the main roof structure, which will catch all that, and it'll melt and go down the gutter system.
Okay, thank you.
We had to make it, we reversed, we flipped the roof. Instead of being conventional, we just bent it down a little bit.
I'm okay with quirky and innovation in Brentwood.
We had that in the 60s, Paul, at our college. It's interesting.
Is that all?
Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you. Ms. Bilderbeck, we have an online question from one of our commissioners who is joining us via Zoom.
Thank you very much. I'm excited about this. Actually, when we first envisioned the UD district, I mean, this really is consistent with a lot of the things we talked about. And I love the elevations. I love what you've done, like as you described it with the dimensions. It was one of the things I noticed right off the bat. So I just think it looks outstanding. I mean, I'm sure there'll be questions later, but overall, I think it looks great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're very excited about this. So.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh, sorry, Mr. Moore.
Yes. Oh.
Well, yeah, we'll get to it. It's not done yet. All right, with that, let's go to staff report then. Ms. Kelly.
Whitney Kelly on behalf of the city of Brentwood. I will try not to be too repetitive of the applicant. But as they have already indicated, they did go, this property in particular did seek approval of rezoning from light industrial to the planned development overlay district for an office development in 2018. However, that project never proceeded and the site has remained vacant since that time. The applicant submitted for a text amendment to modify the density allowed under the current zoning district, and that received a positive recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, but based upon questions from the Board of Aldermen and concern of, yes, making a universal change throughout the entire PD district, they seemed hesitant. So therefore, the applicant has submitted for the rezoning and conditional use permit, which is why we're here tonight. The sections require that Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Aldermen approve any rezoning application as well as any site plan in the UD district and for any conditional use permit. So I won't go into quoting those sections, but so the current zoning is PD and it is surrounded mostly by light industrial with a partial down area that brings down that is also PD. But it is near the urban district on the other side of the Metro Link. And they both had very similar stated purposes in that they were to promote the redevelopment for multifamily development, retail, and office. And so it is a very similar district. The PD district versus the UD district does allow for the PD district allows for 6 floors or 75 feet, and as a CUP can go up to any floor. The UD district is 2 floors, and as a CUP can go up to 6 floors or 75 feet. The site coverage from the PD district is also different, and this was one of the issues that we got into with the PD district with their prior application, and the site coverage for residential only allowed up to 50%, and whereas the UD district allows up to 80%. There's the zoning districts. There is some distinction in some of the zoning districts that when you're adjacent to any property that abuts the A, B, AR, MR, or UD district that is used residentially, there would be additional side setback and rear setback, as well as front setback. So if adjacent properties were to rezone and they want to be used as office or other uses, that would be a future impact on them. Again, the side setback and rear yard is 50 feet where it butts a property of any residential zoning district in the PD district, whereas in the UD district where it's a side or rear lot line coincides with the side or rear lot line of adjacent residential zoning, then the landscape shall be 25. So there are some distinct differences in the setbacks between the two districts. The comprehensive plan includes this property in the business park character area of the Hanley Industrial Court, which is seen as a cottage industries for innovative technology startups and incubator offices. And that buildings should be 2 or 3 stories. So that is a difference with this property and this proposal with the comprehensive plan that is up for your review tonight. So it also noted that it is encouraging rezoning from properties from light industrial to the plan develop overlay to foster redevelopment. So how this proposal fits in with the comprehensive plan and those goals is for your discussion. And so the factors, the zoning code does include factors including whether a property should be rezoned, the existing use and zoning of the nearby property, the extent to which the property values are diminished by the particular zoning restrictions, the extent to which diminution of property values of the subject property promotes the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the public, the relatively gain in public vis-a-vis hardship imposed on the individual property owner, the suitability of the subject property for the zone purposes, the length of time the property has been vacant as zoned, considered in the context of land development in the area, in the vicinity, and the subject property. The care in which the city has undertaken to plan its land use development, and the evidence or lack thereof of the city's need for the proposed use. So the proposed development, as stated before, is a 256-unit apartment building with 588 spaces that will include a Planet Fitness on the ground and mezzanine floors. I won't go too much into the site plan. The code does recommend that there should be one entrance per street frontage, unless approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, so that is something that y'all would have to specifically approve. However, in this instance, it was provided for the fire truck lane here to have better access and separate entrance for the Planet Fitness as with the structured parking for the apartment complex. So, and they are sufficient width apart, but that will be something that Lee Cannon of CBB can address if y'all have any concerns with that. Here are the elevations. So under the UD district, the proposal does meet all of the zoning requirements. It is set 35 feet. There's a 30-foot side yard and 30-foot rear yard to accommodate the fire truck lane, and it is 6 floors with the tower roof at 7 feet above that. But the code does allow for tower elements to exceed the height restriction. So here, it just talked about the drive laws. The fire department has reviewed and does not have issues with the fire plan. One thing to note, though, is the fire access lane is 3.5 feet from the side and property lines and rear property line, where the code requires a 5-foot buffer for parking and drive aisles. So if the commission feels that the fire lane access and its limited use warrants the change, I think that is something that could be reviewed for your proposal. But that was something that also Andy Frank had mentioned in his report. So they are asking for a reduction in the parking. The total required parking is 645 spaces, and they are providing 588. So that is one thing. As the applicant has indicated, and as I indicated in the staff report, in my initial discussions with Lee Cannon, he did feel like it was sufficiently parked, even over-parked, but a more detailed analysis would be provided. And he did not have a concern with the amount of traffic on that road at this time. He did have some initial concerns about one of the entrances, but I would leave that up to him for his review. To get the reduction in parking, it does require significant landscaping features, a high-quality landscape plan and proper irrigation, and intense planting and retention of mature plant materials. All of the trees on site, they did provide a tree survey. All of the trees on site will be removed. Most are in poor or dying condition. Andy is here to address any plan, his review of the landscape plan, but he did not feel that it raised to the level of significant planting for the reduction at this time. So, address those. So the photometric plan shows that no lighting will be leaving the site, and that all lighting is downcast and shielded. There'll be bollards and walkings along the side length of the apartment complex. So the building, as the applicant has indicated and the architect has indicated, the building elevations include a number of different materials to offset, to highlight certain features of the building. While not in the UD district, but elsewhere in the code where they do have design standards, this building does largely meet with those design standards. However, there were some areas that should be taken into consideration. And that building entrances are to be clearly delineated and clear transition from the exterior to the interior, and every main entrance is required to have a special emphasis when compared to other proportions of the building. And facade articulation, that all buildings and parking structures are required to have horizontal and vertical facade, and such as pop-outs, bays, recesses, arches, bandings, columns, or similar features, which the building does have pops out and bandings to create interest. However, in the staff report, I did indicate that I felt that the entrance for the Planet Fitness on the south side could have used a little more emphasis, and there was a concern that the black brick along the west elevation on the side seemed kind of flat, but there are wall-mounted lighting and bollards and landscaping that appear to break that up. But if that is a concern, that is something you should address. Let's see. So I will let Andy Frank speak next, and then the traffic study would be available for the next meeting.
Frankie.
Never used the mic here before. Feel like the city attorney. Don't mistake me for that. Nothing against attorneys. Thank you, Whitney. My name's Andrew Frankie. I'm with Planning Design Studio. We are the city's on-call landscape architect. Have you guys seen this report? Okay. So just in quick summary, we break our review up into 4 categories. One are ordinance items, one are general site plan items, landscape plan items, and then other. So under the ordinance items, just right off the bat, as Whitney said, we felt that additional landscape treatment would be needed to kind of meet the bonus requirements for the reduction in parking, and we'd like to see that treatment kind of extend along the south, or the part of the building to the south and kind of wrap around. Whitney also mentioned the 5-foot buffer between that drive aisle, the fire access drive aisle, is really 3.5 feet. So that's something you guys would have to decide if you want to allow for a variance there. On the general site plan, we noted, and this, we usually do this in tandem with Lee Cannon's review of the roads, but we had some concerns about the monument sign possibly obstructing the site triangle, and then on the other entrance where the Planet Fitness vehicular entrance is, there's an existing retaining wall that's going to remain and a power pole. We provided a photo of that. There might be an issue again with the sight line. One of the considerations is the road actually drops down, so you've got a short distance there. It looked from the plans like that power pole was going to remain and the wall was going to remain, so we were concerned about that. I'm sure as a petitioner knows, there's an existing southwestern bell pedestal and tie wall that we just wanted confirmation that it would be removed. I'm sure it will be, but we just noted that. We felt the petitioner should consider adding some plant material to screen the proposed gas utility service on the south side in that area. The proposed trees along the road right-of-way should be spaced at 35 foot on center. A few of them weren't. The existing Hanley Park Industrial sign at the southwest corner, we didn't see it on the plans. It needs to be shown, and we weren't sure what was going on down there. There's a lot of honeysuckle. It should probably be cleaned up. Maybe if some more planting added there that would enhance that existing sign. On other related items, all the ADA parking signs should be installed at a height of 60 inches from the ground to the bottom of the lowest sign. That has come from the city's ADA coordinator. Kind of a picky detail, but kind of after listening to that for 10 minutes from her, I wanted to point that out to you guys so you didn't have to go through that. Terry does a great job. It's just, she wanted to make sure everybody knew that. I'm assuming the Verslock wall is going to stay. If it does, just power wash it and make it look fresh. We assume all of your HVAC units are going to be roof installed. If they aren't, and if they're going to be on the ground, please screen them. And we noticed on the site plan, there's your water service is coming in there with a vault. We just weren't sure what that was going to look like. I assume it's going to be underground, but just wanted to make sure that was flush. So in summary, that's our report. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Frankie from the commission? If not, actually, for the petitioner, have you had a chance, first of all, to review the report, and are there any responses, or would you be able to meet those recommendations?
We do have responses, Chair Nelson.
So in regards to the fire lane, correct, the the pavement actually measured again is 4 feet, the curb is 3.5 feet, so we have a foot there. We would like, just due to where it's located along the back of the Metrolink Trail and there, to leave as it is. If we need to shift a foot to make that room, it's not something that's impossible to be done. The monument sign, right now, it's just a rectangle shown just where we generally would like to place it. Whenever it comes time to understand what the size of that sign may be, it'll be located to make sure that it's outside of that site triangle. Let's see. Same way with the entrance. There's an existing entrance where we're lining that one up on the south, and it lines up with the entrance that's across the street. It's fairly flat grade there, and it is under stock control, but we'll discuss with Lee Cannon whenever his review to make sure that it's safe for all the folks that are coming in and out of there. We are coordinating with AT&T. We've been trading emails with them to identify the pieces and parts that can be removed. I think that the developer, at any case, if that pedestal had to stay, that falling down wall that's made out of railroad ties would be upgraded to match with the consistency of the building. As far as the landscape items go, when the gas utility location is further ironed out, sufficient screening will be provided. I believe that Rusty here will be able to adjust the trees to meet that 35-foot spacing and any additional landscaping that may be needed as we continue to discuss any of the bonuses that are needed for that parking reduction. As far as the other related items, all ADA signs, we will comply, and we will note that on the drawings as well as when we get to the construction drawings. The Versalock wall would be cleaned again to just help all the brand new development that we're doing here to make it look nice. Same way with any HVA units. We don't plan to have any ground mounted units, but if there are, they'll be screened sufficiently. And then the water meter vault is just per Missouri American Water Standards. And the square is flush with grade, and so we can kind of hide that a little bit with some ground mountings, but they don't let us bury the top of that in full.
Mr. Barkis, I think if I understood correctly, so, kind of the one thing you would prefer to keep where it is the 3.5, 4 foot. We have a conversation at that. Everything else, I believe I heard you're in agreement with. The one thing I'm not sure I heard anything about, though, was Mr. Frank, you had said that they didn't have enough landscaping at the entrance to meet the basically the bonus requirement for parking. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And can we address that?
One other,
He's our landscape architect and can
one other item on that I failed to mention, we didn't really see any additional detail on the pavement pattern. It looked like you guys were doing something special there. So if you could just provide some information so we know if it's plain concrete or colored or pavers or what you're thinking there. Because that kind of comes into the consideration of all that bonus treatment. It's not just plant material through there.
Absolutely.
Thank you. My name is Rusty Saunders. I'm a principal with Loomis Associates, Chesterfield, Missouri. We're the landscape architects on the project. Thank you, Andy, for bringing that up. The paving is a special paving pattern that we're doing on the driveway that's between that's the primary drop-off driveway for the residents. And we also created an entry stair that takes people from the building to intercept the public sidewalk that's along Hanley Industrial there, so that if somebody's coming in Ubered or dropped off or bus traffic, that they can go up, and they'll use that entrance to go up the grade and into the building. So it's a direct access to the public street and public sidewalk. Then when you get up there, there'll be some, we haven't quite resolved all the details of it, but right now we're drawing it as a special scoring pattern, and hopefully we'll be able to use some additional colored concrete and some other materials in there to enhance that. Related to Mr. Frankie's concerns about the additional landscape, we will look at adding additional landscaping in the area that we kind of worked at the area that was sort of the main front of the on the west side. We were looking at some other opportunities and around the corner, on the southwest corner, and we'll look at that and enhance that. And then related to the street tree placing, I looked at it again this afternoon, and it looks like we could probably put at least one additional tree on the south side and another one on the west side to get that and still maintain those sightline triangles that we need to have at those entrances.
Yeah.
So that's And as far as the monument sign, it's simply in development right now and will conform to what Mr. Cannon has to address related to sight lines and that sort of thing, sight triangles. We looked at it in a cursory manner. We think it's okay, but we haven't really studied it to the level that it needs to be studied to.
And that would be part of the comprehensive sign plan, I would expect, so. All right.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly, can you speak to block retention walls, the options you have, and what
On the existing one or additional ones?
I'm unaware of the additional, but
I don't believe we have any additional in the back.
would just be,
Sorry, I know it's up and down, but just so we can get it recorded.
We do have a small one shown on the east side along the MetroLink property. It's about 3 foot tall. It's along that fire lane. And so the site plan has some notations along it, not on this colored version, but the ones that were submitted with some top of wall and finished grade elevation. So that would only be seen if you're driving in the fire lane. The existing block wall, we are planning to leave in place for the majority of it. There's a small little piece at one of the entrances that we'll need to work with, but all the Ameren, and there's a bunch of public utilities that run through easement directly behind that wall. It wouldn't be our plan to take that wall down, to relocate those even further below grade, and then we're still gonna need a retaining wall, just due to the elevations from the street. So, per the discussions that I've had, I think that the developer is more than happy to clean that up, power wash it to make it look like it's new and part of the project that we have here. Welcome.
Any other questions? Sherry, any questions? All right, thank you very much. All right, do we have any members of the public wishing to address the commission on this, please? If you could state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Ed Breimer, and I own a property with my family at 132 Hanley Industrial Court. And the business we have is in graphics architectural signage, which is directly across the street to the south from the proposed property. So I come with a couple things to discuss. I got a list of things. We've been in the court since 1984. We purchased a single building, and about 10 years later, we bought the property next to us and tore it down and built an addition and refaced the whole front, so it looks as if it's one property. And so we've been deeply embedded in Brentwood for almost 40 years now, and love having a business there and really like the community. And I've stood at this podium and spoken prior with the storage unit was possibly going to go in there some years back, and then the Post Holdings property, and we spoke highly in favor of that when that was going to possibly happen. It sounded like a great addition to the neighborhood. I'm also the treasurer on the board of the Hanley Industrial Court Association, which is a group which has been around for many, many years to, keeps an energy level up to kind of foster improvements in things going on in the Hanley Industrial Court area. Have to admit, I haven't heard about this development yet. Whatever communication took place, it wasn't coming our way. So this is my first time to get to see and hear about all this stuff. So thanks for sending out the letter so I was aware of what was going on. I was also asked by the city to be on the comprehensive plan development group. So I was, as a community volunteer, I spent a lot of time as that plan was developed with Hillsdale Levine and folks in the position over here and prior people. And the one thing caught my interest right away was when we worked on that plan, they developed the Hanley Industrial Court as an area of interest, as a lot of you understand and know. And the residential really was intended to be north of Strassner in the red zone of that plan, not south where this proposal is going on. So, first of all, I want to compliment you guys. Did a beautiful job, and it's a gorgeous building, and compliments to the rest of you for looking at the neighborhood and trying to make something very attractive. So, in that regard, all thumbs up from our side of things. But the scale of the building and where it is, I just think it needs to be discussed. You probably have to some extent, but as a part of your comprehensive plan, it makes me wonder if this isn't, and I think not in compliance with the plan, where does that change? Do you call Hillsdale, have them revise the plan, or do you change the plan internally, or what happens to the next block to the north, the next block to the west? Where's it going if it's a plan that you developed and now there's a proposal that doesn't comply with the plan? What's the point of the plan, and what changes maybe would the plan be needed to be made to be consistent with it? 6 stories is big. We all have to admit that's a large building, kind of across the street. And in fact, the rendering was drawn as from the inside of our offices, the perspective of that rendering was not true to the streetscape because it was taken from a little further back. The 6 is going to be extremely tall as you enter the court. That's wrong, but it's totally incongruent with the existing property in the area. And I think that's
A quick change.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I'm not here to say right or wrong. I just think it's something to be discussed. It seems like the sewer runoff is a concern. We've had multiple times backups in our property. We're sit low, well below the property over here. When Walmart was built across the street, there was a continual rain over a few days, and we had a huge runoff during construction, which flooded us and the bank next door to us. It came down in through the back alley, and we had this much mud in our lower level, which thankfully Brinkman Construction paid to restore our building because they didn't have proper silt control and water runoff things. But I think runoff during construction is a huge concern because anybody downhill from that during the construction phase and you have uncontrolled rain situation, it's important to make sure that that's complied with and properly protected. That's sewer capacity. It sounds like you said most of it's going to the north, not to the south, because we've had also underground sewer backups into our building because the sewers get overcharged. And I think there may be a combination of storm and sanitaries that goes towards the creek because it's always been kind of a mystery. There's old sewer lines that run through there. And we just, as one property owner and others behind us, Carboline and the rest, probably need to be concerned that we don't overcharge the system. If it's going to the north, it's somebody else's problem, but it's still a problem. But it's a lot of showers and toilet flushes at 7:30 in the morning that has to be taken into account in the diameter of your pipes underground there. The other thing I just wanted to bring up is this was, I don't know if you folks know this, but BOLA brought this to our attention in our industrial court. I wanted to submit this. A few years ago, there was a study that CDG did. Study that the city of Brentwood hired CDG to study the streets in Hanley Industrial Court. And I don't know how many of you know about this, but they deemed, this is maybe 7 or 8 years ago, 2012, 10 years ago, that all the streets in blue are not city of Brentwood streets. They are owned by the private property owner adjacent to that street. And that had to do with when Tom White first built Hanley Industrial Court, he didn't properly deed the streets over to the landowners contiguous to that street. So where we sit at 132, Hanley Industrial Court in front and on the side of our building technically is our street. And we've discussed this with BOLA many times as an association, and we couldn't get anywhere. And she said, at the time, the only way for the city to take them over would be to bring the streets up to standards at our expense, and then the city would consider taking the streets. But until that time comes, we own the street. So jokingly, I'm going to put a toll booth up there and take a nickel for everybody driving out of Hanley Industrial Court. But my concern is that all the truck traffic, the construction traffic, and everything that's going to be driving on those same streets during the year or 2 years it takes to build this building is going to have an impact on those streets one way or the other. And I just bring this up for discussion because I think it might be a good time for the city to take the streets back and claim them and have them as your property, not mine and the next door neighbors and all the way down in all the oranges. So we can talk about that later, Whitney. I just think some of you folks might not have known that. And it's new information, but I've kept these files all these years because it never got anywhere with it. We discussed it and tried to get somewhere. It just didn't get any traction. But if that's really our street and the big cranes and construction equipment have to drive on that street to exit to Hanley Road and they crack the streets, problem, So I think that's well worth a consideration. So that was a couple of things. Our organization, our industrial source, if this carries, we'd love to have you as neighbors and talk to you about how you could join our group and foster more improvements into the community because, that's what it's all about is active membership. So that regard, it'd be nice to have a large use that's willing to contribute. But it sounds like the rest of the stuff you guys have already discussed and we're talking about already. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Breimer.
Sure.
I will say, as a resident of York Village, I'm very familiar with private streets and trying to ask the city to take over those streets.
Really?
So
You've done that?
I have some I have not been successful, so.
Can I take a look at the board real quick?
Absolutely. Any other members of the public wishing to address the commission? All right. We've got a lot in front of us, folks, and I will say, just to put out there a couple of ways that we can go. One thing that was mentioned I'm sorry, please.
Since the applicant brought it up, I did want to point out that a public notice did get mailed out to all properties within the UD district and within 300 feet of this property for this rezoning. I did receive one phone call, however, there was no name given and there was no return number that I could contact it back, but it was in general, they recommended a denial, but I just wanted to make note of that.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Yeah, I would say that, again, we have some directions we can go, and understanding Mr. Breimer's point of, what UD, I will say that at least from, and having been part of the comprehensive plan, we've talked about this in many of our commission meetings. We go through this process to have a comprehensive plan for a reason. But we do also, comprehensive plans change. We update them regularly. And there also is the fact of, is this contiguous? Is this close to the use that we saw envisioned? I think that point well raised of, where was that residential envisioned? But I would also say that the further south you have towards Manchester, the easier it is for public transit access. And I think that's something that that the petitioner had mentioned in the previous meeting. So again, our plans forward of, we do not have the traffic study or the parking study back. This is a large development. I think that is very critical, understanding that we have from Mr. Cannon kind of early indications that he doesn't see a whole lot of challenges. But I do believe having that final report is important, especially since there is a request for a variance in reducing the parking spots. And so I think that that's something that maybe we want to see. We have the opportunity to do that at a site plan subcommittee, do a site plan review. If that is all we have, however, and I guess I would look to Ms. Kelly of what do we think we might have on our agenda for our next meeting. I guess what I'm putting forward is I don't necessarily want to have the petitioner and everyone for multiple meetings if we're able to do it, because we do have to have the vote at our next meeting anyways, unless we're prepared to vote tonight. And so I just wanted to put that forward as, do we need to have subcommittee if really what we're looking at is the traffic study? And I'm interested in the will of the commission on that. Ms. Sharing.
For clarification, we have several things before us. One is the actual amendment, right, to the urban development, right?
No, it's the rezoning
rezoning.
of the property to urban development and the site plan and conditional use permit for the apartment complex and fitness facility.
But I would say that it has been the practice of this commission that we don't just do that unless we're ready to move forward with the whole thing. Because if something else falls out, then we've already rezoned and we don't want to have to rezone back. So, but yes, there are multiple things to consider. I do believe we also do, I would at least put forward from my seat, would like to see kind of the things that Mr. Frankie recommended and just see maybe some updates on some of those things that we've talked about. But other members of the commission, other thoughts? I guess part of it would be, and do we want to carry this over to next meeting, or do we want to have subcommittee on this?
I feel, Mr. Chairman, I feel like we've had an awful lot of inputs, we've got a lot of materials which we've been through. I'm not quite sure there's much to be gained. Personally, I would say not from having subcommittee. I think we should just digest the traffic report ahead of the next meeting and then come armed with that.
All right. Ms. Bilderback, any input?
I could make an argument both ways. I mean, part of me wants to kind of sit down with the hard copy plans in front of me and like go through the landscaping in more detail and see the revisions to the landscaping plan and have the opportunity for more changes. And the same depending on what the traffic study and the parking shows. So like if something comes up at the meeting, it's at the planning commission meeting and we've waited until then you may or may not have the time to adjust or to address it. On the other hand, the odds of there being major issues are probably low because this is really pretty thorough other than those items. So I can make an argument either way.
And I think I heard significant willingness from the petitioner to, I guess, make those changes on at least landscaping. And we've heard, I guess, early indications that traffic and parking may be favorable. So I would agree with you, except for those factors, the fact that we've gotten good indications so far. Any other thoughts? Sorry.
You had asked about
Yep.
the next meeting. We do have two and pending one more application for the next meeting.
Okay.
The site plan and conditional use permit for the APA Humane Society, they'll have their second reading at the Board of Aldermen on Monday. And then the PNC Bank was purchased and is being converted to a veterinary hospital. So that site plan review will be before you.
Okay.
And they haven't completed their application yet, so I haven't determined if they will actually make the meeting. But there is a tenant within the Deerberg Shopping Center, Scissors and Scotch, which is a gentleman's hair, and then it turns into a bar. So,
Got Mr. Moran's attention.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah, for
Mr.
the
Morris.
record, I don't want anybody with scissors drinking scotch while they're anywhere near my head.
So we have a busy agenda is what I'm hearing. However, I believe with this application, at least, what we're looking at is a fairly quick review. So with the commission, do we want to have?
and I don't, since this is the first time I also have seen this, that the road is private, I would like to determine if that has any impact on this project.
That very well may. That's a challenge. Okay. Not hearing a whole lot of love for site plan. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
Oh,
that only
okay.
allows you to drive one way. That's a problem. So the will to carry this over at our next regular meeting then, and we will do traffic review at the next reading. And I will note, just for the petitioner, it is not necessary to do a full presentation again. Obviously, we're going to focus on traffic. We'll ask questions about traffic and parking, and we will probably ask some follow-ups on the landscaping to make sure that those recommendations have been well received. Anyway, all right. So with that, we will, it's not a table, but we will hold this over for the next regular meeting when we can review the traffic and
That will be May 11th.
May 11th. All right. Appreciate the petitioner and everyone's time and all of the folks who presided. This is an excellent project. We're looking forward to hearing a little bit more about it from staff and from our consultants next time. But really appreciate your continued interest in being in Brentwood. Getting back to the agenda, we next have aldermanic report, seeing no aldermen. Director's report, Ms. Kelly.
Steve Lockmuller is on
Oh,
the thing if he wishes to provide a report.
my apologies. Alderman Lockmuller.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
I have no report.
He just had to do that. We appreciate
Yeah.
your attendance anyways.
Thank you.
All right, now over to you, Ms. Kelly.
Okay, so, I provided what was coming up on the next meeting. So I'll keep you posted or let you know if that third item does come through. It should be a quick, easy item, so I'm tempted to move it ahead, even that they didn't make the deadline. And you've all received an email from me inviting you to the rescheduled Brentwood Redevelopment Corporation meeting. So we would like for you to come and hear the presentation, as anything that might get approved or move forward will ultimately come before you. So if you'd like a review of the application. And that is April 26th at 6 o'clock.
And is this Green Street? There is,
Yes.
yeah, excellent.
And then Sherry has an update. She let me know she has an update from John. She would like to stay.
Thank you very much, Whitney, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, thank you for that moment of silence earlier. I'm sure he really appreciates it. I spoke to him today, and he wanted me to, at the meeting tonight, first of all, let you guys know that if anyone wants to reach out to him, you're more than welcome to do so. He is taking phone calls, but he wanted me to let you know about the arrangements for his son, Corey. And on Sunday, April 24th, so that's a week from Sunday, April 24th, from 3 to 8 p.m. 3 to 8 p.m. Sunday, April 24th, there'll be a visitation at Boak Chapel. And then on Monday, April 25th at 9:30 a.m., Monday, April 25th at 9:30 a.m., there'll be a mass at St. Mary Magdalene. And then he's working on something possibly as far as a follow-up after the mass at OB Clark's. That's to be announced. So he just wanted you all to know, and this is also a good way to, a lot of people know and love John. He's been a great member of the community for so very many years, he and his family, and that way folks know how they can pay their respects and all of that. So thank you very much for the time.
Appreciate that. All right. Any other business from members of the commission? With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
I have a motion and I believe a second, Mr. Moran. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed,
Aye.
same sign. We are out.